The grand ballroom at the Riverside Country Club sparkled with crystal chandeliers and gold-accented decorations for my mother's 55th birthday celebration. 200 of the city's most influential families had gathered to honor Catherine Parker, the woman who'd built Parker and Associates Marketing into one of the region's most successful advertising agencies over 25 years. "You're dead to us." Mom's voice echoed across the elegantly appointed room as she stood near her birthday throne, an elaborate chair decorated with silk flowers and golden ribbons where she'd been holding court all evening. Her diamond tiara, a birthday gift from Dad that probably cost more than most people's cars, caught the light as she pointed an accusatory finger at me. "The Parker family has a reputation to maintain," she continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom where guests had stopped their conversations to witness this very public family drama. "We simply cannot have someone in our family who refuses to live up to our standards of success and respectability." I stood quietly near the back of the room, wearing my simple navy blue dress, the same modest outfit I'd worn to 3 other family events this year. Not because I couldn't afford designer clothes, but because I'd learned that expensive fashion drew assumptions about wealth that I wasn't ready to discuss with my family. "Catherine's absolutely right," Dad added from his position beside Mom's birthday throne. "We've worked too hard building our business and social standing to let anyone drag down the Parker name with questionable life choices." My younger sister Melissa nodded enthusiastically from her spot at the head table, radiant in her custom birthday party dress. At 28 she was already the creative director at Mom's agency, following the approved family path toward success and social recognition. "It's embarrassing, honestly," Melissa said, addressing the crowd of marketing executives, city council members and business leaders who represented the cream of our city's professional community. "Having a family member who works at some little nonprofit organization when the rest of us are building real businesses." The guests shifted uncomfortably in their formal wear, clearly witnessing more family drama than they'd expected at an elegant birthday celebration. The string quartet in the corner had stopped playing, sensing that the evening's entertainment had taken an unexpected turn. I pulled on my simple wool coat, the same coat that had embarrassed Mom at family gatherings because it didn't match their carefully curated image of success, and started walking toward the ballroom's main entrance. "That's right, just leave," Mom called after me, her voice trembling with what sounded like years of accumulated disappointment. "Run back to your little do-gooder projects. Maybe someday you'll understand what real achievement looks like." I was halfway across the marble floor when the ballroom's ornate doors opened with a flourish. Mayor Jonathan Davidson strode in, flanked by 2 city council members and what appeared to be his entire senior staff. He was clearly dressed for an official occasion, wearing his ceremonial chain of office over his formal suit. "Miss Parker," he called out enthusiastically, scanning the room until his eyes found me near the back. "There you are. I'm so sorry to interrupt your mother's birthday celebration, but we have urgent matters to discuss about your $500 million city development project." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in the suddenly quiet ballroom. Mom's diamond tiara literally slipped sideways on her head, the elaborate crown sliding off her perfectly styled hair as her mouth dropped open in shock. "The downtown revitalization project is ahead of schedule," Mayor Davidson continued, walking across the ballroom toward me with obvious excitement. "The City Council voted unanimously to approve your proposal for the historic district transformation. Ms. Parker, what you're planning will revolutionize our entire downtown core." 200 of the city's most prominent citizens were now staring at me like I'd grown a second head. The marketing executives who'd been dismissing me moments earlier were suddenly looking very interested in whatever the mayor had to say. "I'm sorry, Your Honor," Mom managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper as she bent down to retrieve her fallen birthday crown. "But there must be some mistake. My daughter works at a small nonprofit. She doesn't have $500 million for city development projects." Mayor Davidson looked genuinely confused by Mom's statement. "Small nonprofit? Ms. Parker, the Parker Foundation for Urban Development is one of the largest community investment organizations in the state. Your daughter has been our primary partner in the city's most ambitious revitalization project in 50 years. The murmur that ran through the crowd was like electricity. I could practically see people recalculating their entire understanding of the Parker family dynamics. $500 million? Dad repeated weakly, sinking into the nearest chair. That's just the initial phase, Mayor Davidson explained enthusiastically. The complete downtown transformation project will involve approximately $1.2 billion in private investment over 5 years. Ms. Parker's foundation is the lead investor and development coordinator. City Councilwoman Rebecca Martinez stepped forward from the mayor's entourage. Ms. Parker, we've been trying to reach you all week about the groundbreaking ceremony. The governor wants to attend. He's calling this a model for public-private partnership in urban development. I cleared my throat gently. Your Honor, perhaps we could discuss this on Monday morning? Tonight is my mother's birthday celebration. Of course. Mayor Davidson said, but his enthusiasm was infectious. I just wanted to personally thank you for what you're doing for our city. The affordable housing component alone will provide homes for 3,000 families. And the job creation projections, incredible. Mom was staring at me like I was speaking in a foreign language. Affordable housing? Job creation? What is he talking about, Lauren? Before I could answer, my phone rang with the distinctive tone I'd assigned to my chief development officer. I glanced at the screen. Dr. Michael Chin, CDO Parker Foundation. I should take this, I said to the mayor and the crowd of stunned faces. It's probably about the Portland expansion. I answered the call and, given the circumstances, put it on speaker. Hello, Michael. Lauren. Fantastic news from Oregon. The State Housing Authority just approved our $340 million mixed-use development proposal for downtown Portland. They want to use our sustainable community model as the template for statewide urban renewal. The ballroom was so quiet I could hear the crystal chandelier tinkling gently in the air conditioning breeze. That's wonderful, I replied, aware that 200 people were hanging on every word. What's the timeline for groundbreaking? 6 months for permitting, then 18 months for Phase 1 construction. We'll be providing 2,500 units of mixed-income housing plus 200,000 square feet of retail and office space. The environmental sustainability features are already attracting national attention. Mayor Davidson was beaming. Ms. Parker, this is exactly the kind of innovation we're implementing here. Your foundation's approach to community development is revolutionary. Michael, I said into the phone, I'm at a family event right now. Could we schedule a comprehensive briefing for Monday morning? Absolutely. And Lauren, that interview request from 60 Minutes about young entrepreneurs transforming urban development? They want to feature both our Portland and our local projects. I glanced around at the faces staring at me in complete amazement. Have my assistant coordinate with them. I'll review the segment outline next week. Perfect. Congratulations again on the Portland approval. You're changing how entire cities think about development. I ended the call and slipped my phone back into my purse. The ballroom remained absolutely silent except for the gentle background music and the soft murmur of staff preparing dessert service. 60 Minutes wants to interview you? Melissa whispered. They're interested in how private foundations can lead urban development while ensuring community benefit rather than displacement, I explained. It's a model we've successfully implemented in 8 cities so far. Dad was staring at me like he was trying to solve an impossible puzzle. Lauren, how long have you been doing this? 8 years, I replied. I founded the Parker Foundation when I was 23, starting with a $75,000 loan against my student debt. We've grown to manage about $2.8 billion in development projects across 12 states. The silence that followed was broken by Councilwoman Martinez. Ms. Parker, I have to ask, when you say $2.8 billion in projects, what does that mean in terms of community impact? I pulled out my phone and opened the Foundation's impact tracking app. The same app one checked every morning to review progress reports from our development sites nationwide. Currently, our projects house approximately 31,000 families in affordable and mixed-income housing. We've created about 18,000 permanent jobs and 45,000 construction jobs. Our developments include community centers, schools, healthcare facilities, and green spaces in previously underserved neighborhoods. The murmur of amazement from the crowd was audible now. Several guests were pulling out their phones, probably Googling the Parker Foundation for the first time. But Lauren, Mom said, her voice barely audible, you told us you worked at a small nonprofit focused on community organizing. I do work in community organizing, I replied gently. I just organize communities around comprehensive development projects that provide housing, jobs, and services while preserving neighborhood character and preventing displacement. Mayor Davidson was taking notes on his phone. Ms. Parker, I'd love to schedule a meeting with our entire city council. Your approach to development could be applicable to other districts beyond downtown. We're already analyzing 3 additional neighborhoods, I confirmed. The East Side Industrial District, the Riverside area near the university, and the former shopping mall site on the north end. 3 more projects? Dad asked faintly. The Parker Foundation believes in comprehensive community development rather than isolated projects, I explained. When we invest in a city, we look at multiple opportunities to create interconnected improvements that benefit entire regions. My phone rang again. This time it was my communications director calling from our Seattle office. "Excuse me," I said to the crowd. "This is probably about the national media coverage." I answered the call. "Hello, Sarah. Lauren, I hope I'm not interrupting your mother's birthday party, but I have incredible news. The National Urban League wants you to keynote their annual conference about equitable development. They're calling you the most innovative developer of your generation." Senator Williams, who was among the birthday party guests, nearly choked on his champagne. "The National Urban League? That's wonderful, Sarah," I said into the phone. "What's the theme of their conference?" "Building communities that work for everyone." They specifically want you to address how private capital can drive development that serves existing residents rather than displacing them. I looked around at the faces of family and friends who were finally hearing about what I'd been building for 8 years. "Have my assistant coordinate with them. I'd be honored to speak." "Perfect." When Lauren, the White House Office of Urban Development called. "They want to discuss your foundation's work as potential policy guidance for federal housing initiatives." The gasps from the crowd were audible. Mom actually swayed on her feet and Melissa had to steady her. "Let's schedule that for next week as well," I replied calmly. "Excellent. Congratulations on all the recent recognition. You're really changing how America thinks about urban development." I ended the call and looked around at the stunned faces of 200 prominent citizens who were finally understanding what I'd been quietly building while they assumed I was unsuccessful. "The White House," Mom whispered. "They're interested in scaling our community development model for federal housing policy," I explained. "Apparently, our approach to preventing displacement while improving neighborhoods has attracted attention from policy researchers." Mayor Davidson was practically glowing. "Ms. Parker, this is incredible for our city. Having a developer of your caliber based here, the economic development opportunities are enormous." "The Parker Foundation is committed to community-driven development," I replied. "We don't just build buildings. We build communities where people can thrive regardless of their income level." I looked directly at Mom, who was still holding her crooked birthday crown in her hands. "For 8 years, you've all assumed I was some kind of idealistic failure who didn't understand real business. You've been embarrassed by my simple lifestyle, my modest apartment, my focus on community work rather than personal wealth accumulation." The birthday celebration had completely transformed. Instead of a traditional family party, it had become an impromptu urban planning conference with 200 influential citizens learning about equitable development from someone they'd completely underestimated. But I wasn't rejecting success. I was redefining it. While you've been focused on individual achievement and social recognition, I've been building systems that create opportunities for entire communities. Dad stood up slowly, walking toward me with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of amazement, pride, and what looked like regret. "Lauren," he said quietly, "I owe you an enormous apology. We all do. What you've built, it's incredible. You don't owe me anything, Dad. But I'd like us to start over. Maybe get to know each other as adults who might have different definitions of success but the same underlying values." Mom was crying now, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks as she realized the magnitude of what she'd been dismissing all these years. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered, setting down her birthday crown to embrace me. "I'm so incredibly proud of what you've accomplished. And I'm so sorry we made you feel like you had to prove yourself to us." "I wasn't trying to prove anything," I said gently. "I was trying to build something meaningful. The recognition is nice, but it's not why I do this work." As the evening continued with discussions about urban development, community organizing, and using private capital for public good, I realized something important had changed. For the first time in 8 years, my family was seeing me as successful rather than as someone who'd chosen an alternative path to success. The birthday celebration was transformed, but in a way that felt more authentic than any perfectly planned party. Instead of celebrating individual achievement, we were discussing collective impact. And that felt like the kind of success worth celebrating. Mayor Davidson approached me as the evening wound down. "Ms. Parker, I know this was your mother's birthday party, but I have to say, having you as a resident of our city is one of our greatest assets. What you're building here will benefit generations." I looked around at my family, finally understanding what I'd been working toward all these years. "Thank you, Your Honor. But the real credit belongs to the communities we serve. I just provide the capital and coordination. They provide the vision and the commitment to positive change." The Parker Foundation had projects in 12 states, but tonight the most important development was happening right here in Mom's birthday ballroom, where a family was finally learning to understand each other. And that was worth more than any development budget.